What do you think are the issues that really connect with business people? As you say, you've got a lot of high-powered New York real estate folks. On the surface, you'd look at that and think not terribly given to introspection or
Yeah. Well, right.
or deep thoughts.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And yet, what are the topic areas that really resonate with folks?
Well, I've come to this very interesting revelation about the people I work with. They're all human beings, and it's a lot of people that I meet who seem very tough and very guarded, and they need to be. It's a tough business here in New York. On the inside, struggle with the exact same things that every other human being struggles with. How can I find meaning in my life? How can I connect better to other people? How can I experience joy? How can I be happy? How can I feel free? How can I prosper? How can I experience abundance? How can I increase love in my life? All those things. Some people are not as ready to discuss those things in such an open way, and some people are. But I truly believe that everybody yearns for those things if you know how to touch them in a way that they will hear. So in my experience, the things that move people. Well, let me back up. When I do my weekly speeches, I usually begin with a very light anecdote, something that happened to me. I root it in something that's real that usually happened at work. I made a mistake with a client. I had a disagreement with somebody on the train. I had a dilemma with one of my staff. I had something with my boss. And I start by talking about those, and people can relate to that. Those are real experiences. They're not theoretical. And then I start to explore that from a philosophical point of view. What's really going on here? How can we step back and look at that in an objective way, kind of pull our egos out of it, pull blame out of it, and let's look at the dynamics in a way that next time the situation occurs, we can deal with it in a much more effective and growth-oriented way, and we can come out of that experience better at what we do and better as human beings.
One of the questions that occurred to me, and this sounds like a semantic play, but it's really not. Do you find that there's a difference between finding fulfillment at work and finding fulfillment in work?
That's a wonderful distinction. What I say about work in the book and what I've discovered for myself, I say that work is a spiritual gymnasium. That in other words, the spiritual principles that we learn about in synagogue, at church, on the meditation sofa, those things, if they just make us feel good at the moment that we're doing them, but don't transform us in the place where we're most likely to not follow them, which is work, in my experience, and we're seeing the results of that on Wall Street very vividly, where people didn't follow some very basic ethical and moral and spiritual practices because of the temptations, then those principles don't have any power over us. So when you're at work and you're faced with monetary temptations, you're dealing with people who bother you or you bother them. You're competing with other people. You're trying to make a living. You're working at the most basic food, shelter, clothing kind of level. If you can, in that moment, employ spiritual principles to those situations, you really have a great opportunity to grow. So the fulfillment that you find in work, I simply think, is the opportunity to employ those kind of principles in an environment that's going to foster growth.
What does having an organizational commitment to a spiritual approach and having that, what does that do to a company or an organization? How is it different than a company that just shows up Monday morning and works till Friday night and doesn't consciously address those things?
Right. I think it makes a tremendous difference. I mean, if you look at stages of development within human beings, companies go through similar stages of development too. So just like you can live at a very narcissistic stage of development for yourself, or you can live at a communal stage, or you can live at a moral stage, or you could live at a more integrated type of stage, companies do the same thing. They can be very narcissistic, and if that's a culture that's created from the top down, you're going to both attract those kind of people and reward those kind of people. So there's companies that that are really based on command and control and brutal competition, and the last man standing, wins. And those certainly are not spiritual practices. And I think we're learning very directly, especially now, that those don't work. That the companies that really thrive and prosper are the ones who foster the kind of connection I was talking about earlier. The connection between teams, connection between clients, connections in the community. And that's what spirituality is all about. And when you learn to really listen to another person and respect their point of view and have persuasive conversations that allow for divergent viewpoints and a group consensus, you're going to do much better physically in the world, and you're going to also be increasing people's spiritual levels as well. So we're seeing the advent, I believe, of spiritually oriented corporations who are thriving in many different kinds of ways.
Alan Lurie, the book is 5 Minutes on Mondays, Finding Unexpected Purpose, Peace, and Fulfillment at Work. Thanks for coming on the Working Week today. And that is this 98th episode of our podcast. Please check out our archives for past episodes of the show, as well as audio contributions from people like Donna Jones, the evolutionary provocateur, Max McEwen, and others. Meanwhile, I'm Wayne Trammell, and I must now return you to your working week.